Okay, I think now the audio is working. Can you hear me? Okay, let's see. Okay, so now you should hear me properly. Okay, perfect. So welcome again. My name is Salvatore. My name is Salvatore Gaetano Verdoliva. I'm Chief Agronomist at Smart Fertilizer. And I'm also a PhD candidate, so I'm about to finalize my PhD in agronomy in general, but more specifically in hydroponic. But today we will talk about hydroponic as well, but more generally about fertigation. So what fertigation actually is, electrical conductivity, so EC, and pH. So we'll talk about what these three things are, and also how to manage them in hydroponic, but also in generally in fertigation. So today we will talk about, we'll explain what fertigation actually is, why fertigation is used mostly in horticulture, and also why there are different approaches, different types of fertigation, and which one are the most commonly used. So according to also the different types of fertigation, we have different, we'll talk about different concepts. So what is an injection ratio and what is the number of application. And after, we will talk about the fertigation in general in terms of settings and systems and in terms of equipment. We'll get a bit more into the details, and we'll talk about agronomy and a bit more about chemistry as well in a bit, in a way. So we'll talk about water quality, because we will talk about water as well, and what are the parameters that makes a good water or a bad water. So we'll talk about also about electrical conductivity, what is it, pH, what is it and why is important. And connected to the pH, we will talk about acid, why we're using acids and why they're important. And also, if you use fertigation before, I'm sure some of you did already, why we use multiple tanks for the stock solutions. And also we'll talk a bit more in details about hydroponic. So what is hydroponic, and what is an open, what is a closed hydroponic system, and what is why is important the measurement of runoff and or drainage, whatever you prefer to name it. And chelated fertilizers, what is a chelation factor, why is important, and why we have on the market many chelated fertilizers. And also I will show you how Smart Fertilizer is calculating automatically the fertigation for your crops in our software. So let's start. First, let's define what actually fertigation is. Fertigation is very simple, means fertilization plus irrigation, and then is fertigation. So it's fertilizers plus water, and then you have the fertigation. So to explain it a bit better, is basically the technique that is dissolving fertilizer in the water and is delivering this nutrient solution to the crop with an irrigation line, which can be with drippers, sprinklers, or other systems. Of course, is used mostly in the fruit and vegetable sector. There are of course some advantages and some disadvantages, but and we will talk about it a bit, especially the cons, the disadvantages. Why? First of all, of course, is a system, so you need pipes, pumps, sensor, control panels, etc., electrovalves. So of course has medium-high installation costs, and also is a bit complicated. So requires a know-how. So you have to learn how to use it. So you need some training, you need some experience, and you need some knowledge. And also, in order to keep going and to preserve it in the future and to make it more, to make it efficient and to keep it efficient, you need a constant maintenance. So there are some basic costs on a per year basis that they are, of course, much more than the open field crops. But the pros, so the good things, are actually very good, because considering that you are able to deliver constantly in each irrigation event some fertilizers, you basically are able to microdose the fertilization. And this increases the efficiency a lot, because you are able to reduce the fertilizer and water usage, because you're fertigating only when the plants actually need it, or on a very accurate schedule. So if you're doing a fertigation in an open field, for example, you reduce the leaching. Also, if you are doing an open hydroponic, which I'll explain you later what it is. So anyway, if you're measuring what the nutrient solution that the plant is not absorbing, so you're losing, if you're measuring that, you are able to really understand almost real time what the plant is actually eating or what is not eating, which is a very important asset in order to adjust the plant nutrition. But why fertigation is not used everywhere? Why is used only in horticulture? So is used only in fruit and vegetable sector? First of all, because the production of fruits and vegetables is able to generate more money per square meter per hectare, more income per hectare. So in general, the farmers that they are in this sector, they simply have more money on average. So they are able to afford this technology, these systems, this equipment. Therefore, this equipment is more suitable also for this sector, because not only these crops can generate cash crops, they are also called. They can generate more revenue, more income, but also they need a more accurate system. So it's like they can produce more. They can create more revenue, but also they need a much more accurate system, especially because they have high requirements in terms of fertilization. Also, fertigation we can basically summarize it into different approaches. One is quantitative, and is based on the quantity of fertilizer applied. So once you calculate, the agronomist is calculating how much fertilizer is needed to a crop, to a certain area, to a certain surface. This quantity of fertilizer is just basically put inside a pressure tank, so a tank. And this tank is basically inside a little bypass, which means that there is the main irrigation line, and there is a bypass with a pressure tank. In this tank, an operator, a worker, is putting the fertilizer, is closing the tank, and basically in one irrigation event, the water is passing through the pressure tank in the bypass, and is dissolving the fertilizer, and then is delivered to the plants. This method is widely used because it's very cheap. The only thing that you need is a bypass, so just some adapters and some pipeline and a tank, and a pressure tank, which is not that expensive. But in terms of agronomy, is not the best choice, because every irrigation event, so in one irrigation event, you're creating a high concentration, you're delivering a high concentrated nutrient solution to the plants, and every time that you're creating this, basically you're creating a peak, and so a high and low concentration of nutrients every day, or depends on your intervals. So basically the plant, every time that it's receiving water, is receiving also a high concentrated solution, which is not that good. Of course, with other irrigations, without the fertilizer, this concentration is actually kind of washed away. But for the plant, it's not that nice to have this kind of peaks in concentrations of salts in the root zone. That can create, some temporary high osmotic pressure, so a temporary water stress. And I will explain you later what does it mean this. On the other hand, the proportional is actually very different, because it's still based on a quantity of fertilizer, but this quantity of fertilizer is applied proportionally to the irrigation volume, which means that every liters of irrigation is included with a little bit of fertilizer. This allows the system to deliver a very homogeneous, very balanced nutrient solution, so the plant is always receiving the same amount of nutrients according to the fertilization plan. So it's absolutely better in terms of from the agronomic point of view, but is much more expensive because you need injectors. You can have Venturi injectors based on the pressure, or injection pumps, which are based on the electrical impulse, so you have peristaltic pumps most of the times. And these peristaltic pumps, they need to be managed by control panels, is much more expensive and much more complicated to set up. But in hydroponic, this is the system that is actually used because it's much more efficient and it's better for the crops. As I said before, proportional is based on the irrigation, is a proportion of the irrigation volume. So it's based on, as it's called, injection ratio, and it can be either expressed in percentage of the volume of irrigation or in liters of nutrients of stock solution per cubic meter of irrigation. On the other hand, the quantitative is based on number of applications. So you know the amount of fertilizer, you know the volume of your pressure tank, you're simply dividing fertilizer divided by the tank volume, you get the number of applications. So simple, to make it simple, if you have to apply 100 kilograms of fertilizer and you have 100 liters of tank, you can just do 100 divided by 100, you have one application. So in one application, you can apply the whole fertilizer needed by the crop, according to the calculations. We also talked about, we mentioned water, irrigation water, which means that fertigation is actually, the biggest component is actually water. So we need a good water to fertigate our crops. But how can we define, how can we say our water is good or bad? There are some different characteristics, for example, biological characteristics, which is basically assessing if your water has bacteria or algae or anyway, biological threat, which is not good, for example, and can lead to some diseases. Physical characteristics, so if your water is full of sand, for example, or solids, especially if you're recycling your water from some sewage water, which is not good as well, you have to filter it. Or also chemical characteristics, so in this case we will talk about electrical conductivity and sodium absorption ratio. What is a SAR? Is an equation, is a parameter, is a mathematical operation, but that, to make it simple, is assessing if your levels of sodium in the water can cause a toxicity to the plants, so can cause a stress, a problem. And on the other hand, the EC is indirectly measuring the amount of salts, so it's measuring indirectly the salinity of the water. And of course, if the EC is very high, you can have big problems because the salinity is high and you can cause some stresses, and I will talk about this kind of stresses later. But maybe you have a question, why there are salts in the water? First of all, because maybe you're close to the sea, so the seawater can actually filtrate in the ground and get into the groundwater, so it can actually contaminate the water with salts from the sea. But also it can be that you are in an area, in agricultural area, so there is a lot of misuse of fertilizer probably, and this fertilizer is actually filtering in the ground and is actually polluting the groundwater. Or simply, as you know, water in the rivers, in the rocks, in the mountains, they're actually eroding, so they're actually taking some pieces, little microscopic pieces of rocks, and they're bringing them in solution. In fact, about this, you maybe heard about hardness of water. What does mean hardness of water? It means a water is hard when it has a lot of concentration, high concentration of calcium carbonate, so calcium. And where is coming from this calcium? From the erosion of the rocks, simply. I said that the sodium absorption ratio actually is a very good indication if you have a toxicity, a toxic level of sodium. In fact, the water can be, there is a parameter called toxicity of specific ions. So if you have high concentrations of chloride, sodium, or boron, even if your EC is low, but you have high concentrations of these three ions, you can be in trouble. Like your plants can be stressed. And also I said salinity, I mentioned salinity, but what is actually salinity? It's basically a measurement of how many salts, how many elements, and sometimes how many nutrients are in the water. Salinity is not a bad thing itself, because sometimes salinity can be caused by a good amount of nutrients, but many times, if it's just the source water with high EC, can cause yield reduction, because can create in the root zone, so in the area close to the roots, can create high osmotic pressure, and therefore in the soil or in the substrate can create a water stress. How? You maybe heard about osmosis in the school, but let's refresh our memory. So osmosis is the process where water is moving towards a high concentrated solution. So the water is moving towards the where there are more salts, let's say like this, in order to keep the balance, to reduce the concentration of that area in order to keep the balance in the solution. In the example here on the left, we can see a container with two sections, and is separated, but is divided by a semi-permeable membrane, which means that only water can pass, not that the salts cannot pass. As you can see, there are the arrows. So the water is moving towards the high solute area in order to decrease the concentration, because if there is more water, the concentration is lower, in order to balance the whole container. So if you can see, if you have a look at the picture on the right, we can see that, for example, in a case, this is a root, okay? This is a root zone. So if the concentration of salts in the root zone near the root is not that high, there is a low soil, in this case it's soil, but it can be also substrate or can be water, there is a low osmotic pressure. So the water is actually going inside the root, tend to go inside the root, because the inner part of the root is actually high concentrated with salts, because there are the nutrients and there are many things. So it's very easy for the plant to extract the water from the substrate, from the soil, and drink, let's say like this, and absorb the water. It's very easy. But if there is a lot of concentration, there are a lot of salts in the root zone, the osmotic pressure is much higher, so the water is not flowing that easily in the root anymore. So the plant has to put more effort in the extraction of the water, so it has to put more energy. And the extraction of water is essential for the survival of the plant. So that's why there is a yield reduction, because the plant is focusing its efforts on survive, so on extract the water rather than produce a lot of fruits, a lot of flowers, or big fruits and good quality fruits. That's why the salinity, the high osmotic pressure, can cause a water stress. So the plant is actually closing the stomatal, which are the pores of the leaf where they're absorbing the CO2 from the atmospheric environment. And if these stomata are closed, the plant cannot transpire, cannot produce, basically cannot, the metabolism is absolutely stopped, is almost stopped. And therefore there is a yield reduction, of course. But we said electrical conductivity, salinity, but what actually is electrical conductivity? We said that the EC is a measurement of the salinity, let's say like this. But if you think about it, salinity, what's the matter between salinity and electrical conductivity? In the word electrical conductivity, you feel there is something about electricity, right? And it's exactly like this. Here in the drawing, you can see that distilled water does not conduct electricity, because pure water, distilled water, is just H2O. And as you can see here, the formula, oxygen, so H2, so two hydrogens and one atom of oxygen, they are balanced. The charge is neutral because there are two positive charges and two negative charges. So this total is neutral. So if you apply electricity to the distilled water, you basically have cannot conduct the electricity, so you cannot light the light bulb. But normal water, normal source water, the water that we are drinking, is actually full of ions. That's why it's actually conducting electricity. In fact, so basically, we can say that the higher is the EC, the more ions there are in the water. So the water can be is more salty, we can say, but it's better to say it has a higher salinity. But this EC is just telling us the concentration. Is just telling us there is a lot, or there is a high or low level of nutrients, but we don't know which nutrients are inside. And the EC is measured in microsiemens or in decisiemens, depends on the multiple you prefer to use. Another thing that is very important in fertigation is the pH. I'm sure that you heard about pH in very various fields, but also it's important because the pH is actually regulating many things in biology. But what actually is measuring the pH? pH is the operation, P is the mathematical operation of the concentration of H. So it's minus logarithm of the concentration of H3O plus, or, for simplicity, H plus. What is an H plus? Is basically, this means that the two molecules of water are in constant dynamic equilibrium, so they are producing, and they are going back to the normal water, some positive charge ions and some negative charges. So, according to the concentration of these two elements, we have different pHs. So if we have only pure water, so only H2O, this equilibrium is in equilibrium, actually, so the pH is neutral, so is always 7. But if we have, for example, more nutrients, like we said before, we have more salts here, we have more ions, so plus and minus, and this can change this balance. So we can have more acidic if the H plus are more, or less, or more alkaline or basic, if there are more OH minus in the water, or in the solution. Why the pH is so important? Why you even heard it, as I said, in other fields rather than agriculture, because it's regulating the transport, the cellular transport, the cell transport. So I'm not going too much in the details on this. I'm not going to talk about proton pumps, etc. But I want to make you understand that the pH can actually influence a lot the absorption of nutrients inside the roots and inside the cells as well. Here also we have a chart of ranges of availability of all the nutrients important for agriculture. This is for soil, and for hydroponic, maybe everything is a bit more on the acidity side, around 6. But it's very, it's just to give you an idea, and it's very actually close to the hydroponic as well. As you can see, the macro and mesonutrients, so NPK, sulfur, calcium, and magnesium, are very available around. The highest availability of them is between 6.5 and 7 in this case, but for hydroponic is more 6.5. Anyway, as you can see, actually the micronutrients are more available slightly in the acidity side of the chart. So for hydroponic, around 6, between 5.7 and 6.3, something like that, this is the range where everything is let's say perfect, where everything is available in the highest at the highest level. That's why we prefer to keep our fertigation water, our fertigation solution, within a very specific range. Because if you think about it, the scale of the pH is from 0 to 14 only, there cannot be minus, and we have only between 5.7 and 6.3. So it's very specific range. So we said that we have to change our pH, the pH of the water, in order to match that range. How can we change it? Most of the times with acid, because most of the normal potable water, so the water that you can actually drink, are around between 7 and 8 pH. So you have to, most of the times, reduce it. And you can reduce it with acid. The common ones are, for example, sulfuric acid is relatively cheap in agriculture, but it's a bit dangerous because in handling, in terms of health and safety. So many farmers, many growers are preferring actually nitric acid. Or it's a bit more expensive, the phosphoric acid, but sometimes actually is preferred as well. So these are the most common ones. But the settings of the injection, how not really how much acid you are applying to your water is important, because once the pH is good, you can stop. But the setting, so how you're injecting the acid is important, because as you can see here, I brought some examples, A, B, and C. As you can see, the average of the pH, so the range is still 7.5, especially in A and C, is 7.5 and 4. So the average is still around 5 something, also here. But you have big peaks. You have peaks about 7.5 and peaks low. You have also lows around 4. And as I said, lower than 5.7, some nutrients are not there available. So this part around 4 is very bad, this low. So of course, these settings, the B settings, is absolutely better, because the peaks are actually very, they are more frequent. So the injection setting is actually more frequent, but is lower. So we don't go too low. That's the point. So we never cause a real moment where some nutrients are not available at all, which is better. So even the injection settings are absolutely important. And I brought also an example of the availability of phosphorus, for example. Phosphorus, together with other, especially the micronutrients, is very pH dependent. The availability of it is very pH dependent. In fact, as example, also iron and manganese are actually also affected by pH as well. And probably, if you are a grower, you're already calculating your phosphorus level as a P2O5. But P2O5 actually doesn't really exist in nature, because in nature, either if it's in the soil or in the nutrient solution, there's always water. Okay, so actually in nature there's not P2O5. There are actually H3PO4 phosphoric acid, and the phosphoric acid is actually very available only between 0 and 4 pH. After 4, so around between 5 and 6, is actually available another compound. Okay, so as you can see, the fluctuation of the concentration of P is dependent of the pH, and also the pH can change absolutely the form of the phosphorus. So it's very important, the pH in this case. Also, if you are a grower since many years, or an agronomist, I'm sure that if you're using fertigation, you know that you should use multiple tanks, and maybe you already using multiple tanks. But why? Because especially in proportional fertigation, you have two or three, if you're using acid as well, stock tanks. So you're making the mother solution also. But why? Why are you dividing? And let's see how. I'll bring you an example, because there are some compounds, some fertilizers that are not really compatible. For example, calcium and sulfur. If you're mixing, for example, calcium nitrate and potassium sulfate in the same tank, calcium nitrate is CaNO3, and in water is creating the ions calcium 2+ and nitrates. The potassium sulfate is creating K+ and sulfates. Okay, K+ and SO4, so sulfates, calcium and sulfates, actually binding together in the solution again. But this compound is not cannot be dissolved, is not soluble in water, so it's precipitating, as you can see in the picture here. It's creating this sort of dust at the bottom of the tank, and you will never get rid of it. It's impossible to dissolve it, to melt it. So if your injectors, your peristaltic pump is absorbing this, you can clog it. You have to absolutely replace it, and you're spending money. And it can happen something even worse, which is basically if you're sucking this precipitate and it's going in the greenhouse and it's going to the drippers, you basically clog in the whole system, all the drippers, and you have to replace the whole greenhouse drippers, and it's a huge cost, of course. So we have to be careful. But also, this is about compatibility, but also there is a problem of solubility. So as you can see, calcium nitrate, for example, has a very good solubility. So you can basically dissolve 1.29 kilograms in 1 liter of water, so it's very good. But potassium nitrate, for example, is absolutely is a sixth almost of the solubility of calcium nitrate, and you can dissolve only 200 grams per liter. So if you're mixing all together all these compounds in the same tank, apart from the compatibility, but you can also have some problems in solubility. So the solubility is actually the solubility of each fertilizer is fighting against each other. So you can create some problems, especially if you need a specific injection ratio of high concentration. You cannot put in the same tank. You have to put in the same tank fertilizers with similar solubility as well. Otherwise, the injection ratio will be wrong in a way. Yeah. Also, we said about pH. We talked about pH, phosphorus, iron, manganese. So let's go a bit more in the micronutrients. What is a chelation factor? Why some fertilizers are chelated, like iron, manganese, molybdenum is chelated sometimes as well. What else? Yeah, iron, manganese, zinc is chelated as well. But what does mean chelation? Chelation is basically a compound, usually could be also organic, could be natural, that is basically coating the ion of the nutrient, and it's basically stabilizing it. Because these fertilizers, for example iron, is absorbed by the plant only as a iron 2 or 3. But these compounds are absolutely unstable, so they can bind together with other nutrients, and then they will not be available for the plants anymore. So that's why there is this coating system, so the plant is able to absorb the whole molecule with the coating inside the roots, and therefore is able to absorb it. This is very delicate. And different coating factors, so chelation factors, are actually can be more expensive or cheaper, and can also have different effects according to the pH. For example, a DDHA chelation factor is probably the best ever, because as you can see, even the graph, the concentration of the iron chelated with the ADDHA is always 100%, up to 11 pH. So basically all the time, okay? But it's very expensive. The TPA is also good, and is not susceptible that much to iron replacement, but is effective only up to 7 pH. As you can see, the TPH is around 7 something. The DTA is the cheapest probably, and is working well up to 6 pH, but above 6 pH already almost 50% of the iron is unavailable. Also is not effective in alkaline soils, so in pH with high pH, as we said, and can easily bound with calcium. So it's cheaper, but can actually create some sort of a competition because it can bound with calcium, and we don't want this, of course. So also the chelation factor is very important. Also now let's talk about hydroponic. Finally. Hydroponic, what is it? First of all, is a system that allows to grow plants in general without soil. It can be some types of hydroponic are actually using some media, some substrate. These substrates are usually inert, so they're not providing nutrients. They're just providing mechanical support, like rock wool, perlite, cocoa peat, or coir, whatever you call it. But they are not providing nutrients, especially the rock wool and the perlite. Other hydroponic system are actually based on is a nutrient solution, is a full hydroponic, and the plant is actually the roots of the plant. The root apparatus is all the time inside the water, and it's different. Is this solution, this water, has to be oxygenated. But why? Remember that the plants are not absorbing oxygen; they are absorbing CO2 from the leaves because they are doing photosynthesis. They're not doing respiration. But sometimes they need some oxygen in the roots because they need some oxygenation of the roots for some transport processes and some energetic processes. But remember that the plants actually, they don't need oxygen. This is actually a waste product in the photosynthesis. And among them, these two different substrate and not substrate hydroponic, we can also have some open or closed hydroponics. So open is basically where when an hydroponic system is not recycling the drainage, so the solution is that is dripping from the substrate, so it's not absorbed by the plant, it's actually going down and is lost. Or closed, so this solution is reused, is like collected and reused, treated and reused. And of course, these closed systems are much harder to manage because this solution, this exhaust solution has to be managed, treated, measured, and readjusted in order to be good for further irrigation. But they're absolutely more efficient because closed systems can save probably even 90% of the water compared to open ones. So of course it's the future, but they need better equipment and they need to be more to be well managed, let's say. As I said, in open systems, for example, or also in closed, the constant monitoring of what is coming out from the substrate or from the roots is actually crucial. So the drainage monitoring is absolutely crucial to understand how the crop is uptaking the nutrients. So here I brought some example and we can analyze them together. For example, in the first one, we are fertigating 5.8 pH and with the NEC of 2. And we are irrigating 200 milliliters, 200 mils per dripper, so per plant. What is coming out? It's coming out pH 6.5, EC 3, and it's coming out only 25% of what we are actually irrigated. What does it mean? So why the pH is increasing? Most likely, in order to, as we said before, the pH, in order to make the pH higher, we need more OH minus, okay? So how is possible that this OH minus is actually where it's coming from? It's coming from the plant, from the roots, because the plants are they have to keep the charge balance inside, so they have to keep the same electrical charge. So if they're absorbing a negative charge, they have to release a negative charge in order to keep the balance inside. So if they're releasing an ion, so negative charges like OH minus, probably they absorbed also an ion, a minus, which is the nutrient with the minus charge. Most likely is a nitrate. So the plant is absorbing a lot, probably nitrate, so nitrogen. So it's good in the absorption of nitrogen. But the EC is increasing as well. What does it mean? That in the substrate or in the root zone, there is a very good concentration of salts, of nutrients, and this is good. And it's good also the drain volume. So only 25% of what I'm irrigating is actually not used. So my plant is actually absorbing the 75%, so 3/4 of what I'm irrigating, which is good. So everything looks fine, but I have to keep an eye on the outlet EC, because if this EC is building up, so it's increasing every day, then I have a problem, because then means that in the root zone, in the substrate, the salinity is increasing, so there is a higher chance that I can cause an osmotic stress. So I'm increasing the osmotic pressure, so I can cause a stress, so I can cause a problem. So what am I supposed to do when the osmotic pressure is increasing, when the EC is building up? I have to either increase the irrigation volume or decrease the EC in order to reduce the concentration of salts. It's basically that I have to wash away a bit of salts. But it's fine. And on the example 2, we can see that we are irrigating the same thing, 5.8, 2, and 200 mils, but pH is decreasing. What does it mean? Probably the plant is releasing H+, so it's absorbing more cations than nitrogen. So it can be either the plant is very young, so it doesn't really need a lot of nitrogen, or the plant is actually fruiting a lot, so it doesn't really need to build up it's not in the vegetative state, so it's actually ripening the fruits maybe, or just fruit setting is in the fruit set process. So it doesn't really need to absorb nitrogen. It's absorbing more potassium, for example, K+, calcium, magnesium, etc. And then it's releasing H+. EC is stable, so the concentration is actually not good. It's actually good, but I can't really say anything. But probably, if the EC in the outlet is actually reducing, means that maybe I'm actually washing away the nutrients, so the concentration inside is not that high, which could be a problem. But is a good is a very important problem. The thing about the drainage percentage. Basically, the plant is absorbing only a quarter of what I'm irrigating. So I'm absolutely wasting water. So what am I supposed to do now? I have to absolutely decrease the irrigation volume in order to increase the EC a little bit in the outlet. Probably this will increase also the pH on the outlet, and I have to be more efficient, and this will allow me to be more efficient in terms of drainage. So the drainage will be dropped absolutely, because the plant simply doesn't need that much water, okay? As you can see, monitoring the outlet and inlet is crucial, because if you, for example, for 3-4 days or for a week, you over-irrigating, you can cause very big damage. You can really have problems. You can develop diseases, funguses, algae, etc. So you have to do these measurements on a daily basis, because 1 day wrong is fine, 2 days is already a problem. You're already creating a stress. We are working at Smart Fertilizer we are creating we call it a drainage tool. So all these adjustments will be created in the software automatically. So the EC will be suggested automatically according to the drainage percentage and pH and the EC of the inlet and outlet. And this, I think, is very good, and I think especially hydroponic growers will really enjoy it a lot, this. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you have some questions. And also, maybe actually first I will actually give you a presentation of the software. I will show you how the fertigation actually works in our software. So I'm going to the software. I need to logging in with my credentials. Okay, so this is my account. As you can see, I already created some fields, and but if you want, you can create some more. So how you create a field? As you can see here, there are greenhouses as well. So let's create a new greenhouse. So draw a polygon. Let's draw this one. Okay, so as you can see, the size is already calculated automatically. Let's call it, we created a farm, and we can call it webinar as well. Field type, greenhouse, okay? Description, if you need to add some information regarding its special trials, etc. I click on save, and I created my field. As you can see, I get some general information about the temperature outside coming from our satellite service, but it's something that is not going to affect the calculation. As you can see here, also you can add some water test. You can create a water test, and you basically, apart from the sampling date, field, and name, you can add the amount of nutrients that your water source has. So nitrogen from nitrates, nitrogen from amine group, ammonium, etc., etc. This is the total nitrogen, P, K, and all the micronutrients as well. You save it. I already created some water test, as you can see. So let's create a fertigation plan with our software. So let's click on hydroponic. Actually, let's click on soil, so I can show you either quantitative and proportional fertigation as well. So here you create the name of your of your program. You select the farm, build webinar, planting date, let's say tomorrow. In this case, also you can choose a tillage effect if you're doing if you're using the plow or not, but a previous crop if you had some previous crop, but we're not gonna go in this. I click on if you have a soil, a tissue test, or a water test. You have to tick these boxes. Also, you have to choose here your fertigation. So if you use quantitative or proportional. Let's click on proportional first, and let's do tomato in greenhouse, soil, and a yield goal. We have to attach a water test, okay? The one that we created before. So here we can see the kilograms per hectare, no, the kilograms per hour field that we need to apply. If in this case we have a greenhouse but no hydroponic, but I will show you anyway. And here you have to select the fertilizer from our database. So what do you want to use? I don't know, borax, calcium nitrate, copper. Let's choose the expensive iron, as you can see, that I mentioned before. Magnesium nitrate, sulfate, manganese, DTA, and potassium nitrate, a source of P, sodium, and some zinc. Okay, save. As you can see, there is a calculation. Maybe I will submit. And this can be expressed in stages, per stage or per day. Let's do per day. We have, as you can see, the columns represent the stage. Okay. And here every single fertilizer has a certain amount per day in this case. I'm going down and I can see if I fulfilled all the requirements. For example, here my sulfur requirement is not reached. And also here calcium. So what I need to do, I need to choose another source of calcium if I'm not happy with that. Or I can simply do some manual adjustments and increase my calcium nitrate. And this is, is a choice of the user. Also, I'm going here on fertigation finally. So I have to choose the stage. Let's say that I'm in the main harvest. Temperature. This is the temperature of your mixing area, let's say. Because as I said before, the solubility is based on the temperature. So let's say that is 10 average. Here I have to put, because it's a proportional, so I have to put how much water I'm actually irrigating. So 1000 cubics in this case. And just every day I'm doing the fertigation. I click on obtain recipe, and as you can see here, it's dividing automatically in different tanks. Why? Do you remember that I said that sulfur and calcium, they are not friends because they can actually react and produce a precipitate? In fact, as you can see, they are divided, okay? And here you can see that if I have in this tank with this volume, I have to put this amount of these kilograms of calcium nitrate, iron, etc. And I need to put of this tank 6.808 liters of this tank every 1 cubic meter of irrigation, which means 6.8 liter every 1000 liters of water. This can be expressed in percentage if you prefer, if you're in America in gallons per 1000 liters. And you might say, oh, okay, I don't have 1000 liters tank, stock mother tank, stock tank, whatever you call it. Okay, I only have 300. Oh, I only have 300. As you can see, all the numbers are changing automatically according to the solubility and according to your settings. So it's absolutely customizable according to your needs. And here you can do the same thing. Here, maybe you have only 300, and then in this one you have 500. As you can see, everything is readjusted according to your needs. And this is basically what you need, and you can do it for every single stage of the growth. And this, I think, is the, let's say, the magic of a smart fertilizer, because as I explained to you before, this is a very complicated process, and is based on not only compatibility but solubility, injection ratios, and etc. So I think that's pretty much it. So so please subscribe. We also have in our software, now in our website, we have this promotion that for 14 days you can try for free our exact product. And if you use our promo code promo30, you actually get the 30% off of our software or our license. So feel free to ask me questions now. So if you want to ask questions, I'm here. I'm reading the comments, so feel free to ask me anything you want. I'll show you here because maybe it's a bit clear. So this table, as you can see here, someone is asking why in fertigation we need to feel temperature, and temperature of what? Of water? No. I mean, of course, could be also water, but it's mostly related to. I mean, probably it's better in some cases. Is better in the water. Because the solubility is affected, as you can see, of the temperature. It's affected by the temperatures. At 5 degrees, at 10 degrees, at 10 degrees, the solubility, as you can see, for example, potassium nitrate, at 40 degrees is absolutely, is much more soluble. You can basically dissolve more grams per liter than the 20 degrees. That's why we need the temperature, in order to be more accurate. Another guy is asking, can I change the type of fertigation after I've completed the program? Yes, I can show you here. Oh, sorry. As you can see here, I'm already fertigation. If you go back in general settings, you can do proportional or quantitative. You just have to redo the steps. You have to reattach the water. You have to recalculate everything. You have to repick the fertilizers, but at the end, okay, I will show you just random, just to show you. Okay, fertigation. As you can see here, I don't have to put the amount of water anymore because it's based on the application and tank volume. As you can see also here, in this case, there are different tanks because I did it randomly. And it's based on tank volume and number of applications. So you have to apply 2 tanks to 1000 liter tanks. But if your tanks is 200 liters, you have to apply, can you see that the numbers are changing in terms of kilograms, but also in terms of number of applications. So this is very flexible according to your needs. Yeah. Another, I hope I answered your question. How many languages are available in the software? Currently only in English and Spanish. But we are in the process to launch also Portuguese, Mandarin, so Chinese Mandarin, and Russian, which will be released probably in the next weeks for sure. So okay, so I don't know, maybe someone is actually, I'm curious to see, to understand what kind of crops the people that are connected are actually growing. Would be interesting to see who is growing what. So let me know what kind of, if you have some questions related to some crops. So someone is asking, Aresh, is it good to have calcium and magnesium fertilizers on same day or alternative days? The day doesn't matter. The problem is the forms of calcium and magnesium, because as you probably know, there's no fertilizer just calcium. There's always calcium chloride, calcium nitrate, calcium sulfate, some calcium with something. So as I said also in this slide, you can see calcium and sulfur are actually not really good friends. And so, there is a table of compatibility. So itself, calcium and magnesium, they are not competitor. It's until limit, because they have both. They have a positive charge. They are calcium 2+ and magnesium 2+. So they have the same also size in terms of ions. So sometimes they are competing in the same in the absorption from the roots. But if you're keeping them in a certain range of concentration, you can actually you can actually apply them all together. And And for example, this is something that the software is doing. It's trying to keep all the ranges all together, all good in the optimal ranges in order to deliver this the best feed for the plant. Yeah. So Louise is asking, how can I have the software free download or not? First of all, you don't need to download anything. As you see, probably, I don't know if you saw it, but is a cloud-based platform. So you just have to go in the link on your browser, on your Google Chrome, for example, on our website. You have to click on login on the top right. You insert your credential, and you can access to our software. You don't need to download anything. The software is a subscription, so you have to subscribe and you have to pay according to the package. But for Exact, if you go in our website, in the Exact package is actually you can get 14 days for free. Another guy, so Sunil, is asking, does the software advise the fertilizer required for all the fruits and vegetables? I don't know if for all. But we have 215 crops. I will show you here. We have 215 crops in our database. As you can see, we have tomato, pepper, wheat. We also have some soil grown, hydroponics, blueberries, cucumber, lettuce, also flowers, anthurium, etc. Soybean, mango, coffee, lemon. We have 215 crops. Many of them have actually both. For example, tomato has the soil-grown version, but also hydroponic version, as you can see. Yes, I think if you go in the website, there is a list of crops, so you can check if the crop if we have your crop. You can type your crop, I think. Yeah. In the website, I think you can find, you can check if we have your crop of interest. But anyway, 215 crops, I would say there are kind of a lot. So, and of course, we include the most common ones. And even the not common ones, for example, fruits and vegetables, we have a very good variety, but also open field crops like cereals, corn, wheat, barley, and this kind of things. Miroslav is asking, can I create my own crop in the software? Yes. For example, as let me show you. We have also. So for example, now I'm opening tomato, and you can see that everything, all the details about tomato, different stages. So first growth is lasting around 15 days, and you need this amount of NPK, etc. But if I prefer to do to make some changes, to make some adjustments, or maybe you are growing a specific varieties, the variety that has a specific requirements, so you can click on use as a base. And this is basically creating an editable copy of tomato. And as you can see tomato new is created, and I can edit it. So I can call it tomato webinar. Okay. I can save it, and I can basically edit everything. I can edit the name. I don't know, cultivar 1. It's in soil. I can change the yield goals, and I can change especially the nutrients required. For example, in the first grow, I don't like, maybe you prefer, your cultivar has specific requirements of nitrogen. It's not gonna require that much. Maybe it's requiring 15 only kilograms of nitrogen. So you're saving it. And as you can see, it's changing. And it's basically this, you're clicking on save, and it's saved. And this is your user-defined crop, user crop. And this allow a very good flexibility. So even if we are lacking in, even if we are growing something very, very particular, you can also create your user crop. Another question, Haresh. How important is soil CEC? If you don't have exact test report or soil, CEC is absolutely very important, because CEC is cation exchange capacity. So it's basically a very good measurement of how much or how well the soil can actually exchange with the plant, with the soil solution, the nutrients. So it can release basically good nutrients inside to the plant. And if you don't have a lab test, it's a bit of a problem. But it depends. If, for example, a sandy soil has usually a very low CEC, because has low organic matter usually, and has less CEC in general as a category of soil. So if you know more or less the soil texture, if it's sandy, clay, loam, or silt clay or whatever, you more or less can assess, can kind of estimate the CEC. So maybe you can tell me what kind of soil texture you have, and I can give you some ranges just roughly. And Joseph, do you update the crop list or is it static? We are constantly updating the crop list, and I think very often we are reviewing them, we are updating them, and also we are creating new crops, because we are, 215 crops are many, it's a lot. But sometimes there is always something new, and there's always also some specification of a certain crop that we can actually create and to get better, to make it better. Also, maybe Arash can tell me what kind of crops are you interested in, because of course maybe grasses, they don't really need so much nutrients, especially if the alfalfa, for example, is already going in symbiosis with some bacteria, so it doesn't really need nitrogen actually. So depends also on the crop. Maybe one more thing that could be interesting for who's connected is, I showed how to create a user-defined crop, a user crop, but also they can do the same with fertilizers. So we have hundreds of fertilizers, as you can see in the list, but maybe in your region is you using a specific product that we don't have, because maybe we simply don't have it. You can create your own. You can click on Add, and you can call fertilizer webinar. Fertilizer webinar, manufacturer, a company, state, if it's solid chelate, liquid acid, manure, etc. Let's say that is solid. pH, if you have the density, especially this is important for the liquid fertilizers. Molecular weight as well. Max number of H if it's an acid, and also you have to tick some boxes if it's a manure, compound, etc. You can put the solubility here. The most common one is at 20 degrees, and the nutrients. So how much nitrogen from nitrates has, I don't know, 10%. How much ammonium, 15%. As you can see, 10 plus 15, 25, automatically calculated, and also you putting the percentages of the others. And or you can put also if it's chelated, and you put the amount of micronutrients as well. You click on save, and you have it. So if I'm checking here now, webinar, okay, I have my fertilizer webinar. And there we go. So I think this is very allows a very good flexibility as again to everybody actually. So Aresh is growing cucumber. Okay, cucumber actually has kind of a high requirements, so it needs a lot of fertilizers. So CEC, low CEC actually, so let's say poor soils are actually not that good. And Aresh is also say heavy black cotton soil, OC. 1.32, 1.32, what is it, the organic matter? Also, Joseph is asking, can I watch this video again? I missed out as we had a power failure. Okay, yeah, don't worry. Yes, this webinar will be live. Will just be posted in our YouTube channel, so you can watch it as many times as you want later on. Can I try, another question, can I try the software? I don't understand. Can you please explain about the 14-day trial period? Should I pay for them later or not? Okay, so the trial period, as you can see here in our website, if you go in Get Started Pricing, you can see that our exact product is actually probably the most popular one. You can actually click on it, and you can have it, you can use it for 14 days for free. And automatically, if you cancel it, it's fine. You're not gonna be charged, it's for free. But if you want to continue, you want to keep using it, your subscription will start from the 15th day, basically. But you can cancel anytime before, within the 14 days. So you can basically have a look about to the old software, to everything that I showed you, and even more, the fertilizer, the labs, etc. And you can have a taste, basically, of everything for 14 days for free. And you can decide if you want to continue with the subscription or not. It's actually very flexible, and you can decide whatever you want to do if you like it. Louise, again, I'm currently studying hydrology, and I would like to learn more about hydroponic agriculture. Okay, great. I am Cameroonian, so you're from Cameroon. I'm looking for a school where I can learn hydroponic agriculture. So hydroponic agriculture is very complicated, is a huge topic, and unfortunately there is not much in terms of courses. We have 2 courses in our website. I can show you here. We have in Academy. If you go in, you have first of all the ebook. We have a very good chapter for hydroponic. We also talk about many topics, and it's just an ebook, so you don't have to. It's just it's not a big thing, but you can have a very good hint about hydroponic in general, so you can really learn many things. Or, as you can see here, we have our ebook, and we have also some courses. So probably you're not really interested in the soil fertility, but you prefer more the irrigation and fertilization, which is not specific for hydroponic, but also we are talking about in the course about fertigation. So it's also, you can use all the knowledge in the hydroponic sector as well if you want. Yeah. So Aresh as well. Yes. So cucumber. So 1.3 organic matter. So organic matter is not that high. It's relatively low. So yes, absolutely, you need a let's call it heavy fertilization. So are you using? So I guess for cucumber you're using fertigation as well. So do you use quantitative or proportional? So thanks, Joseph. Also another guy. Is there a limit for amount of fertilization programs? There's no limit, so you can create as many fertilization plans that you prefer. The only limit that we give, I'll show you here, is the storage capacity. So as you can see here, storage capacity. So you can create as many as you want, but you can keep saved only 50, 240, or unlimited according to the package, the product. You can create as many as you want, as I said. You just can store a limit amount of them. Also, there is another question. What is this book about? Can I order and deliver it to the USA? The book is about many things. As I said, it's about also hydroponic, but also, ebook. but it's an ebook, so you're not gonna be receiving any physical book. You're just gonna receive a password, and you will be able to read the book online. So you can have it in your tablet, in your phone, in your computer. You don't need a physical book. It's an ebook actually, and there are many topics. For example, and this book, as I said, is for agronomists agronomists that want to improve their knowledge, or farmers that maybe sometimes they want to learn something more as well, or some students. Maybe Luis is a student and wants to learn more, or actually anyone that is actually involved in the plant nutrition and in agriculture. We have 7 chapters. So as you can see, we have a general chapter about plant nutrition, what each nutrient is actually, what function every nutrient is actually creating in the plant, what kind of, why calcium, for example, is important in plants, what kind of processes is involved in. And also we are talking about soils, what is the CC, why pH, acidity, exchange capacity, etc., cation exchange capacity. How to manage solid soil is very comprehensive. Also, water quality is something that we kind of talked about today. Irrigation, and this is very cool because it's actually even telling you some very good example in terms of equations, numbers, very good practical examples, so you can really calculate and you can really learn how to calculate some things. Fertilizer management, so what is the foliar feeding, what is maybe I will zoom it a little bit. Also, this I really like it. 5 common mistakes that the growers are making. So it's a very practical ebook. Also, fertigation and hydroponics. As I said, we have an entire chapter of this about this, and also some guidelines related to corn, for example, or coffee, which is a very important crop, especially in South America. So Aresh is doing quantitative. So you're using pressure tanks, okay. So as I said, be careful with the quantitative. I suggest you to try the software for 14 days for free in the Exact. So maybe I will put here in the comments the link. Pricing. So as if you click here, 14 days for free, I suggest you to just try and click on quantitative fertigation, so you can really try if it's something that could be useful for you. And if it's not, you can just cancel the subscription and you're not gonna be charged. So I will maybe put the link in YouTube in the comment section, so you can see our pricings and which is the best package for you as well. Okay, so if there are no more questions, anyway, as I said, we will post on automatically on our YouTube channel. So this webinar. So, and in our YouTube channel, you can also find all the webinars that we did in the past, and you can see our new software, which is the one that I showed you today. And in the previous webinar, we actually talked about more soil rather than hydroponic, and I hope you enjoyed them. So if there are no questions, so thank you very much for staying with me, staying with Smart Fertilizer, and remember to that if you want, if the software is something that you might like, use this promo code and you will get 30% off from the first purchase. And also remember that we have this trial period that can actually, you can have a taste of the whole software without limitations. And so I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much for staying with me and staying with Smart Fertilizer. I hope, oh, another question. Can we add local fertilizer and biological fertilizers? As I said, you can create your fertilizers, your user fertilizers. or custom fertilizers, whatever you prefer to call them. And you can add some organic fertilizer, biological, but you have to really be careful, because the organic fertilizers have a very different structure, have a lot of carbon, so it's affecting a bit the calculation. But maybe, you can contact me on here on the email on support smart fertilizer, and you can tell me what kind of activity you do, and I can assist you also in using the software if you prefer. So, okay, thank you very much. And hopefully see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye and have a good day.